We've all been there. You post a thoughtful thread, maybe share a piece of reporting that's a bit challenging, and then, poof, it's gone. Or worse, maybe the entire site is just blocked by a government firewall, or your account just vanishes, deleted by some moderator for breaking a rule in the terms of service that, let's be honest, changes every other week. Today, our digital world feels like it's built on these fragile permission slips. We're all basically renting space on platforms owned by just a handful of companies, and they hold all the keys to our identity, to our speech, to what we're even allowed to see. Our rights are, well, they're provisional. But what if they weren't? What if your sovereignty, your digital self, was just baked into the system? What if your right to speak freely wasn't some optional rule, but an unbreakable law written in math? Okay, let's unpack that. Our mission for this deep dive is the Foundation Protocol. And our sources describe this as not just another app, but an entirely new layer for the internet. A foundation designed from the ground up for self-governed, uncensorable digital societies.
It's promising a truly permissionless space where the rules are cryptography, not corporate policy.
And we really have to start by acknowledging just how urgent this is. As a security analyst, I look at the current landscape and I see structural failures everywhere. They undermine every single interaction we have online. The Foundation Protocol actually zeroes in on 4 key problems the internet has completely failed to solve, and they are critical. First, and this is the big one, is identity ownership. Your online existence is, for all intents and purposes, leased to you by a corporation. We see it happen millions of times a year. Accounts get deleted, entire digital lives just erased because a user stepped outside some arbitrary line. You don't own your data, and crucially, you don't own you.
And if you don't own your identity, then you lose any real sense of verification or trust.
Exactly. That's problem number 2. Compromised authenticity. In these centralized systems, a platform can fake messages, they can backdate things, they can alter content. It makes it impossible to really prove who said what or when they said it. And when trust in basic communication breaks down, free speech becomes pretty meaningless. Then there's the third problem, centralization itself. A single point of control is always a single point of failure. It doesn't matter if it's a corporation or a government. If the whole system runs on one server or one company's infrastructure, it can be censored, shut down, or seized with a single legal order.
And that last problem, it's a bit more subtle, but it goes right to the heart of how communities even work. If you can't trust the platform that's hosting your community, how do you possibly build trust within that community? How do you reward good actors and sideline bad ones without a moderator who can, themselves, be corrupted? So, to tackle this whole mountain of problems, they didn't just try to patch the current system. They built a new 3-tiered structure from scratch. We're going to focus on these 3 layers today. The communication layer, which is for unstoppable, verifiable messaging, the constitutional layer for those permanent, unchangeable rights, and the governance layer, which brings in a new system of fair, earned trust. Let's start with the idea that underpins everything else: identity ownership.
The whole philosophy is you own yourself. Just contrast that with how you join a platform now. You give them an email, a phone number, maybe even a government ID. They issue you an account, and from that moment on, that company is the absolute judge of your digital existence.
Which means if you say something they dislike, they don't just take down the post, they can literally delete you.
Precisely. You become a non-person on their platform. The Foundation Protocol takes a completely different approach with what's called self-sovereign identity. And this part is radical because there is no sign-up process. No email, no phone number. Your device, your phone, your laptop, whatever, it generates a cryptographic key pair locally. That's it. Your public key becomes your unique ID on the network. That's what people see. And your private key, which only you know, is like the digital pen you use to sign everything you do. It's a mathematical proof that you are who you say you are without any middleman.
The implication there is just enormous. It means no company, no government, and no moderator can control or delete your identity.
Yeah.
Ever. But okay, let's push on that. There's a technical challenge that always comes up with self-sovereign identity. If my identity is just a mathematical key on my device, what happens if I drop my phone in the ocean? Or my hard drive just dies? I've lost my private key, and suddenly this permanent, unchangeable identity is gone forever. Do the sources mention a mechanism for key recovery?
That is the crucial detail, right? It separates the theoretical protocols from the practical ones. And yes, the source material outlines a decentralized recovery mechanism. They often call it social recovery. So instead of uploading your key to some centralized cloud service, which would, defeat the whole purpose, you can cryptographically split your key into several encrypted shares. And then you give those shares to trusted people in your community, or even just to other devices that you own. To get your key back, you just need a certain number of those shares to come together, a majority you predefine.
So you're not trusting one central company, you're trusting a decentralized network of key holders that you chose. That's a huge leap. It turns a technical failure into a social solution.
Okay, so if identity is the foundation, the next logical question is, how do we communicate on it? This takes us to the communication layer. This is where things get, as they say, unstoppable and verifiable. Exactly. You can think of this layer as the infrastructure of truth. From a security perspective, we need more than just encryption for uncensorable communication. We need immutability. If I say something, I need mathematical proof that I said it and that no one, not even me, can go back and change what I said 5 minutes later. And this is done because every single action on the network, a post, a vote, anything, is packaged into this universal message format. And that message has to be cryptographically signed with the user's private key.
And that signature isn't just a stamp of authenticity, is it? It's doing all the heavy lifting for verification.
It is. When that message goes out on the network, anyone can use your public key, your ID, to verify the signature. And that verification instantly proves 2 things. First, that it really came from you, the owner of that ID. That's authenticity. And second, if the message content was altered in any way, even a single space was changed, the signature just fails. It breaks. This makes content both self-authenticating and immutable.
So no more retroactive censorship. No more content manipulation. The data itself is the proof. But let's apply a critique here. If everything uses the same universal message format, what stops a bad actor from just flooding the network with billions of perfectly verifiable but totally useless spam messages?
That's a great question, and it's where protocol design has to be smart. The sources indicate that while the format is simple, it's designed to be incredibly lightweight to verify. The real spam control, though, it doesn't come from a central filter. It comes from the governance layer, which we'll get to. Because every message is tied to a verifiable identity, bad actors can't just spin up new identities for free to spam people. There are costs associated with being a bad actor. And as for censorship, the network is built for peer-to-peer. The sources do mention that the first version uses a simple relay server to bootstrap things, but that's just a convenience. It's not a central point of control. The architecture is designed for messages to eventually route directly between users. No one owns the servers, so no one can be pressured to shut it down.
Okay, so that's the security side of it. Private identity, unstoppable communication. But the real test of a digital society isn't just security, it's structure, right? Who makes the rules when there's no CEO or government? This is where we get into the governance, starting with the unchangeable framework.
Exactly. This brings us to the constitutional layer, which the sources call the Digital Bill of Rights. If the communication layer is the roads, this layer is the bedrock of law. It contains the basic rights, free speech, privacy, identity ownership, and they are literally built into the core protocol itself. They aren't just policies.
But this is a question of code, isn't it? If the code is open source, which it has to be, what's to stop a big, powerful group from just forking the code, changing those basic rights, and creating their own version of the network?
That is probably the most sophisticated question in decentralized governance. And the unchangeable nature doesn't mean the code can't be forked, technically. It means the protocol is designed so that the network effect, combined with the governance layer, makes changing that constitution politically and economically a terrible idea. The initial constitution is the foundational attractor. If a fork tries to get rid of, say, the free speech guarantee, it immediately loses the trust and the utility that the original community has built up. Its reputation is worthless. The Constitution is protected by a social contract that's enforced by the math.
That's a fascinating way to flip it. Instead of us asking an authority to enforce our rights, the authority of the system depends on it upholding our rights. So that protects against the tyranny of the majority. But communities still need to make day-to-day decisions, how to allocate resources, what new features to build. If you can't use leaders or simple majority rule, how does the community actually govern itself?
That's the final piece, the governance layer. And it uses a concept called Bayesian reputation. This is where the whole system becomes self-correcting. See, traditional voting has this one person, one vote problem. It assumes every opinion is equally valid, regardless of someone's track record or expertise. Bayesian reputation flips that. Everyone has a voice because everyone has an identity, but your influence, your actual weight in a decision, is dynamic. It's not about how much money you have, it's about your verifiable track record of making choices that help the whole community.
Okay, break that down for us. How is that track record measured? Give me a concrete example of how someone would gain influence.
It's tracked by the verifiable outcomes of decisions. So imagine there's a proposal to fund a new feature. If you vote yes, and that feature gets built, deployed, and the community agrees it improved the network, your reputation score goes up. But if you vote yes on a proposal that ends up being destructive or a waste of resources, or it harms the network's health, your influence goes down for future votes. Your influence is basically a constantly updating probability of you being right about what's good for the network.
So it's not a popularity contest. You can't just get your friends to vote for a bad idea over and over because the system itself will algorithmically reduce the influence of anyone who consistently makes poor choices.
Precisely. It creates what you could call a self-regulating meritocracy of decision-making. And the sources really emphasize this is how you build trust without a trusted platform. Influence has to be earned through positive contributions that everyone can see and verify.
So we've got identity secured by cryptography, unstoppable communication, unchangeable core rights built into the code, and a self-correcting system of earned influence. When you put all three layers together, that's what seems to transform this from a technical experiment into a global digital democracy.
That's the powerful takeaway, yes. The simplicity of the protocol means anyone can build new applications on top of it without asking permission, without fearing that they'll be arbitrarily shut down.
And the applications are almost limitless because
Right.
they all inherit the core protections. You're talking about next-gen social networks where the community sets the rules, not a company. Secure group chats, immutable news feeds, decentralized marketplaces, even complex digital governments, all running on the same foundation.
And the source material is very clear about who this is for. It's for people facing extreme censorship, communities that want real self-governance, and really anyone who believes that digital freedom should rely on mathematical guarantees, not corporate promises.
Ultimately, the thing that makes this so different is that it's designed to be a permanent utility for humanity, not a profitable platform for shareholders. It's decentralized, uncensorable, private, secure, and self-governing, all running on rules, not rulers.
Exactly. The architects are trying to move the digital world from one governed by fallible humans to one governed by immutable logic. They're replacing the vulnerability of trust with the certainty of math.
And by putting identity, communication, and governance on that cryptographic foundation, the individual gets a level of sovereignty that today's systems are designed to deny them. Which leaves us with a really provocative final thought to chew on. If the foundation of digital citizenship shifts away from corporate permission or state control and instead becomes validated entirely by a transparent, algorithmically verified reputation, does the role of the traditional state and its whole concept of national identity start to become irrelevant in the digital world? It's a question worth thinking about as these systems grow.